So as we see these, differences between the copies of the manuscripts, these get sometimes reflected in our different translations. So you've mentioned, the King James, for example, versus the NIV. In certain places, there's going to be maybe a phrase that's added to a verse. And then there's this handful of smaller instances where we have something like, the ending of Mark. Does it end at verse 8? Is it longer? And most of our English Bibles will have something like a note. This isn't in the earliest manuscripts. Right. So, I think it can be alarming for people when they hear that we have differences between these copies. So what information sort of assures us that the text that we're reading as it's reflected in our translations is reliably accurate as it would have been reflected in the originals?
Yeah, again, there are people out there making a business out of destroying people's faith, and this is one of the things they go to. And they like to point to the longer ending of Mark and then John 8 and saying, well, if these are huge paragraphs, and if these is under question, then everything's under question. The fact, those are the only two large passages that are under question, and they're not really under question because no one accepts them as original. We all know they were added later. There's no question. The dating, the theology, the vocabulary, there's no problem. The other charge that's made, and I think this is an important point to make, is that the people out there saying, well, scholars and Bible translators are deceiving you and trying to hide these differences. It's just not true. We put them in the footnotes. I mean, I've been on the ESV and I'm not on the NIV, and I know how hard it is to get a footnote. I mean, translators, other than the Net Bible, really don't like footnotes. So when you see a footnote that says other MS or other manuscripts have, and what we're showing you is, here's a place in the manuscript tradition where we're not completely sure. Or it's a place in the manuscript tradition where we're pretty sure what the Greek is, but it's such a well-known verse from the King James that we need to keep included just for continuity's sake. We don't hide anything. We put it right there in the footnotes for people. Once you get rid of the question of John 8 and Mark 16, which there's no debate, there's a couple of passages where there's like 2 verses that we're not sure of. Okay, and again, we look at the dates of when those things appear. That's not a big deal. After that, it's a word here or a small phrase there. So what I tell people is, I read Caesar's Gallic Wars in high school. It's my Latin text. Painful experience. We have 3 ancient manuscripts of Caesar's Gallic Wars. And so when I was translating the Latin, I just know that's a text that's been put together from 3 different manuscripts, Latin manuscripts. We have, it's approaching 6,000 manuscripts now of the Greek New Testament. So we have way more copies in the New Testament, some complete, mostly partial. And so we got this huge database of information where we can look and say, okay, we're not really sure, is it Gadarenes or Gergesenes here, or the name of that town. And you can go through hundreds and hundreds of manuscripts and you start to seeing, well, it's got to be one of these 2 or 3. So we have a phenomenal number of manuscripts, and I think God in His sovereignty preserved for us.